ඔබත් SLT පාරිභෝගිකයෙකු නම් ඔබේ හිතවතෙකුට SLT නව සබඳතාවයක් 50%ක වටනමක් සහිතව ලබා දී ඔබේ බිල්පතරත් රුපියල් 6000ක් දක්වා වටනමක් හිමි කරගන්න.
Tonight, willy-nilly, State Minister Shehan Seymour-Singh says the lack of a concerted economic policy by the past government the main reason for the country's current economic woes. No coal. Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, calls for the government to follow international example and shut down Norochale coal power plant. Mixed reviews. Dr. Vijay Dasa Rajpaksha's draft constitutional amendments attracts a mixed bag of reactions. Editor's pick. Sri Lanka gets into CNN Travel's top 20 in 2020 list of must-see destinations. All that and much more coming up on First at 9, this Thursday, the 2nd of January 2020.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9.
It always feels good when you are appreciated. SLT non-stop broadband. Free loyalty data added as you stay connected.
Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammike Nagar. Let's start with your local stories. State Minister of Development, Banking and Loan Schemes, Shehan Seymour-Singh, speaking to media today, stated that the country's current economic situation could be attributed to the lack of a concrete policy framework by the previous government, with many different policy changes taking place in the past 4.5 years. He added that the government aims to stick to a concerted economic policy that will bring stability and business confidence to the country.
State Minister of Development, Banking and Loan Schemes, Shehan Seymour-Singh, answered media questions on varied topics related to the economy and investments today. During these proceedings, the State Minister alleged the previous government's failure to create an investment-friendly environment in the country, leading to a negative effect on the economy and depreciation of the currency. An example of this, the State Minister added, was the recently announced $250 million mixed development investment project, for which initial discussions were held in 2014, but had been put on the back burner by the previous government, even after Board of Investment recommendations were submitted, labelling the project a viable investment for the country.
The initial discussions were taken place in 2014, but the government changed in 2015. So thereafter, I think it was the responsibility of the previous government to take forward the investors' proposals. But what we saw there was never a investor-friendly atmosphere in that government. The main change what we see here is the initial investment was $200 million. So that has been taken up to $250 million US. We have not objected to a 99-year lease, but we have objected to outright sale. There had been an evaluation process with the involvement of the BOI, and once our government came into power, we have further gone into an evaluation along with the Ministry of Finance and the BOI, so we feel that it is suitable to Sri Lanka. But what we see here is, first of all, we'll have to support the local community to contribute back to the economy, because a growth of 7% falling down below 2%, that itself shows whether the economic policy carried out by the previous government was in line with the thinking of Sri Lanka. Every 3 months we saw the economic policy being changed. There had been almost 10 economic policies along with 5 budgets. So we want to have a stable economy, and in that we will stand by the decisions what we take, and we have more faith on investors being invited to come into Sri Lanka. The main reason why the economy got a hit was lack of foreign as well as local investments coming in. As a result, we saw the rupee started depreciating day by day. So we think with our policy, us adopting a friendly policy towards investment, we should be able to take the country forward. Our main concern will not be obtaining foreign loans. We would have more faith on bringing in investments. We will not stay away from any of the agencies. The difference you will see is that whatever the agreements we come into and the conditions, will always favor Sri Lanka. We will negotiate bilateral agreements, and the conditions we agree would be 100% beneficial to Sri Lanka.
In addition, responding to questions regarding the banning of imported ethanol for liquor production, the minister added that the decision came as part of the government's measures to promote locally produced ethanol, which is an extremely cost-effective alternative to the more expensive imported option.
අපේ රටේ සීනි කර්මාන්ත ශාලා පවතිනවා. අපේ ප්‍රමුඛ කාරණාව වෙන්නේ මේ දේශීය වශයෙන් අතුරු ඵලයක් හැටියට නිපද වෙන එතනෝල් ඒ අවශ්‍ය මත්පැන් නිෂ්පාදනය සඳහා ලබා දීම. හැබැයි තව කෙනෙකුට අවශ්‍ය නම් ඊට වඩා වැඩි ප්‍රමාණයක් ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් රජය සොයා බැලීමට සූදානම්. එතන සැකයකින් තොරව ගැටලුවක් තියෙනවා කියලා පේනවා ඔබතුමා ඔය කියපු ගණන් වල හැටියටම. ඒ කියන්නේ ආයනයනය කරද්දී 1050කුත් දේශීය වශයෙන් නිෂ්පාදිත එතනෝ අතුරු ඵලයක් හැටියට නිෂ්පාදනය වෙන එතනෝල් 250කුත් කියන කාරණාව තුල. ඉතින් අපේ රජයේ ප්‍රතිපත්තිය දේශීය නිෂ්පාදකයන් ශක්තිමත් කිරීම සහ විශේෂයෙන්ම අපේ රටේ රාජ්‍ය ආයතන සියල්ල අපි ශක්තිමත් කිරීම සිදු කරනවා. ඉතින් මේ වැඩපිළිවෙල තුල ගත්ත එක ක්‍රියාමාර්ගයක් තමයි මේක. නෑ හැබැයි දේශීය වශයෙන් ප්‍රමුඛතාවය ලබා දීලා කොළඹ හැබැයි අතරතුර යම් ජාවාරම් වෙලා තියෙනවද කියන කාරණාව පිළිබඳව අපි විමසීමක් කරනවා. මෙතන මූලික කාරණාව උනේ දේශීය වශයෙන් නිෂ්පාදනය වෙන මේ සීනි කර්මාන්ත ශාලාවලින් අතුරු ඵලයක් හැටියට නිෂ්පාදනය වෙන එතනෝල් ඇයි මිලදී ගැනීමක් නොකළ මේ වැඩි මිලකට ආනයනික එතනෝල් මිලදී ගැනීමක් සිදු කරන්න කියන කාරණාව.
Gel scene action. Anti-germ mouthwash සමගින් එන close-up gel එක ස්ටෝරි එක ස්ටාර්ට් කරන්න.
Now then, after a month-long break following the proroguing of Parliament on the 2nd of December, sittings are to resume tomorrow morning, chaired by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. The sitting will get underway with a much-awaited policy declaration by the President that will officially set the pace of the government in the lead-up to the parliamentary elections in April. The composition of the 8th Parliament of Sri Lanka following the general election of 2015, which paved way for a United National Party government, gave the UNP 106 seats, with the United People's Freedom Alliance claiming 95 seats. The Tamil National Alliance, meanwhile, had 16 seats in Parliament, with the JVP claiming 6 parliamentary seats. In addition, Ali Zahir Maulana from the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress and Douglas Devananda from EPDP also secured seats in Parliament. That parliamentary composition, however, was subjected to a considerable change with the political transformation on the 26th of October in 2018, which led to what became known as the 52-day government. At that juncture, UNP parliamentarians Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, Venerable Athuraliya Ratanathera, Anand Alutgamage, Ashoka Priyantha and Dinesh Gangkanda crossed over to the UPFA. They were also joined by TNA MP S. Vielendran. With that being the case, UPFA MPs Vijit Vijay Munisoisa, Manusha Nanakara, Lakshman Senivaratna, AHM Fauzi, PSA Nagamage and Indika Bandaranaike crossed over to the UNP during the 52-day government. Although the UNP managed to re-establish power, bringing the reign of the 52-day government to an end, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's election win meant the power of governance went to the UPFA. All the crossovers during the 8th Parliament places the number of parliamentarians representing the government at 97, with 127 representing the opposition. When the Parliament convenes tomorrow, MPs Venerable Athuraliya Ratanathera, Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, Anand Alutgamage, Vasantha Senanayake, Ashoka Priyantha and Dinesh Gangkanda, who were elected to the 8th Parliament from the UPFA, as well as TNA MP S. Vielendran, are expected to be seated on the government side. It is meanwhile yet unclear whether MP Kumar Velgama, who did not actively support President Gotabaya Rajapaksa during the presidential election campaign, would take his place as an independent MP. The 4th session of the 8th Parliament is set to get underway at 10 a.m. tomorrow under the patronage of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. The usual motorcade led by the Special Parade Gate, conducted with the arrival of the head of state, and the 21-gun salute accorded by the army have meanwhile been suspended upon instructions of the president. The ceremony is now limited to traditional Jayamangala recitals and the speaker's welcome. Over 600 dignitaries, including foreign envoys, former heads of state and prime ministers, chief justices and the Attorney General are expected to grace the ceremony. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa will chair the inaugural meeting, with the government's policy declaration also expected from him. After the President's address, the Parliament will be adjourned until 1 p.m. In the meantime, the fourth session of Sri Lanka's 8th Parliament will be brought to you live on AdaDerana 24 and AdaDerana 24 from 10 a.m. onwards. In the meantime, a special meeting between President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and parliamentarians of the government was worked off at the Presidential Secretariat today to discuss tomorrow's parliamentary affairs. Government sources say that Minister of Foreign Relations, Skills Development, Employment and Labour Relations Dinesh Gunawardena is expected to be appointed the Leader of the House tomorrow, while Minister of Roads and Highways and Ports and Shipping Johnston Fernando is expected to be appointed the Chief Government Whip. The UNP too had a meeting of its parliamentary group today under the patronage of its leader MP Ranil Wickremesinghe at the parliamentary premises. It has been decided to appoint MP Gayantha Karunatilaka as the Chief Opposition Whip. Now, MP Vijitha Herath of the Janata Vimukti Peramuna questions the 21st and 22nd constitutional amendments mooted by Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, saying the move will be a blow to ethnic and other factions with differing political ideals if the move actually comes to fruition. Now, but all the other detractors of these proposed amendments, with State Minister of Railway Services, highlights the unfair elements which will be rectified by the amendments. Now, while the 21st Amendment draft bill, parliamentarian Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa proposes to revoke the 15th Amendment to the Constitution, which will result in the vote percentage required by a recognised political party in a district to warrant a parliamentary seat being restored to 12.5% from the existing 5%.
පළමුව අපි දැනගන්න කැමති ආණ්ඩුවෙන් හරියට පැහැදිලි කිරීමක් මේ 21 සහ 22 සංශෝධන දෙක හුදෙක් විජේදාස රාජපක්ෂ මන්ත්‍රීවරයාගේ පෞද්ගලික උමනාවක්ද එසේ නොමැතිනම් මෙය රජයේ ප්‍රතිපත්තියක් විදිහට ගෙනනු ලබන ව්‍යවස්ථා සංශෝධන දෙකක්ද අපි දකින්නේ මේක හුදෙක්ම ගෝත්‍රික පන්නේ ව්‍යවස්ථා ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණය.
මන්ත්‍රීවරයෙක් තෝරා ගැනීමට 105 පැරණි ක්‍රමයට යන්න කියලා. ඒක කෙලින්ම ඔබතුමාලා ඉලක්ක කරගෙන මේ වෙන්නේ.
ඒ ප්‍රතිශත වලින් අපේ ගමන වළක්වන්න බෑ.
1988-89 මැතිවරණ කාලය තුල එදා හිටිය ඒවා අපේක්ෂකයන්ට තමන්ට සුළු ජාතීන්ගේ සහාය ලබා ගැනීම සඳහා තමයි මේ 12.5 සිට 5 දක්වා අඩු කරන්නේ. දැන් මොකද්ද ඔබතුමාලා දැන් මේක අඩු වුනේ නැත්තම් වැඩි වුණොත් තියෙන ගැටලු?
එදා ඒ ප්‍රතිශතය වෙනස් කරේ ඔය විජයදාස මහත්මයා කියන ඌමනාවටම නෙමෙයි. රට තුල විවිධ දේශපාලන මතවාදයන් නියෝජනය කරන බලවේගයන් රාශියක් ඉන්නවා. ඒ නිසා විවිධ ජාතිකත්වයන් විවිධ අලුත් දේශපාලන අදහස් දරන බලවේගයන්ට අවස්ථාවක් ලබා දීම සඳහා මේ ප්‍රතිශතය වෙනස් කරනවා.
මුළු ලංකාවෙන්ම ඡන්ද ලබාගෙන තේරිපත් වෙන ජනාධිපතිවරයා සේනාධි නායකයන් නම් ඔහුට ආරක්ෂක අමාත්‍යාංශයේ අමාත්‍ය ධූරය ලබා දීමක් ඒවත් ඉවත් කරන්න ඕනේ නේද?
ඒක ආණ්ඩුවේ ප්‍රතිපත්ති විදිහට අහන්න කියන්නකො. ඒකට අපි උත්තර දෙන්න. අපිට ඉස්සෙල්ලා කියන්නේ මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ අගමැතිවරයා මේ විජයදාස රාජපක්ෂ ගෙනල්ලා තියෙන 21 22ට කැමතිද? ඒ ටික කියන්නේ.
පක්ෂයක් ඇටියට අපි කණ්ඩායමක් ඇටියට බලලා තමයි මේක ක්‍රියාවට නංගන්නේ. නැත්නම් විජයදාස රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමා ගෙනාවට රටක් වෙනුවෙන් ගන්න ඕන තීන්දුවක් ගන්නකොට දීර්ඝ සාකච්ඡාවක් කරලා ඒක තීන්දුවක් ගන්නවා.
පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ සාකච්ඡා කරනවා නම් ඒක ගැටලුවක් නෑ. ඒ ගැන අපි තව දුරටත් අපි සාකච්ඡා කරනවා. සාකච්ඡා කරලා අපි ඒ ගැන හරියට සෝදිසි කරලා බලනවා.
ඊට පහ කරපු එක හරි අසාධාරණ ක්‍රමයක් වෙනවා. මොකද ඔය 105 කෑල්ල ගත්තොත් උදාහරණයක් ඇටියට ඡන්ද 300ක් ගත්ත කෙනා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට යන්න පුළුවන් වෙයි 105 කෑල්ල. ඡන්ද 20000ක් ගත්ත කෙනා ගෙදර ඉන්න පුළුවන්. ජනතා පරමාධිපත්‍යය එතන තහවුරු වෙනවද කියන ප්‍රශ්නේ මට තියෙනවා. හරියට මේ ජාතික ලැයිස්තුවේ മന്ത്രി ධූරය දුන්නා වගේ.
Now moving on with other local stories, Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit says that it is high time all coal power plants are decommissioned, as not only do they pose a threat to the environment but also to human life. The Cardinal made the remarks while speaking to media today following a visit to the Apeksha Hospital in Maharagama. Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, visited the Apeksha Hospital in Maharagama this morning, looking into the well-being of children receiving treatment there as in-house patients.
මම මේ අම්මලා තාත්තලාගෙන් ඇහුවම අපෙන් මොනවද කෙරෙන්න ඕනේ කියලා ඒගොල්ලෝ කිව්වා අපිට මේ ඉන්ජෙක්ෂන් එහෙම ගහන්න දුර බැහැලා ඉඳලා එනකොට නතර වෙන්න තැනක් නැහැ අපිට නතර වෙන්න තැනක් හරි ගස්සලා දෙන්න කියලා. අපි ඒ අනුව නතර වෙන්නට ඔබට තැනක් හදාගෙන යනවා. ඒකට අපිට පොඩ්ඩක් පරක් වුණා. ඒකට හේතුව මේ රටේ නීති රීති තියෙනවනේ එක එක ආයතනවල. ඉතින් ඒ නීති රීති කඩළු පැන ගන්න එක උගා අමාරු වුණා අවුරුදු ගාණක් ගියා. බය වෙන්න එපා. ඔබගේ දරුවන්ව සුව කරගන්න පුළුවන්. දෙවියන් වහන්සේගෙනුත් අපි අදහන මේ ත්‍රිවිධ රත්නේනුත්. එනම් ගෞතම බුදුන් වහන්සේගේ ඒ දර්ශනයට අනුව ඔබට ලැබෙන පින් වලින් ඒ වගේම ධර්මයෙන් ඔබට ලැබෙන ඒ ශක්තිය තුලින් ඒ වගේම සංඝයා වහන්සේලාගේ ජීවිතය තුලින් ඔබට ලැබෙන අනුහසින් ඔබට මේ දරුවන්ගේ සුවය ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන් වෙයි කියලා මම විශ්වාස කරනවා ඇත්තටම.
Subsequently, the Archbishop of Colombo spoke to media.
දැන් ලෝකයේ හැම රටකම වාගේ මේවා කන්ඩෙම් කරලා තියෙන්නේ ගල් අඟුරු බලාගාර. මොකද ඒ වයින් පරිසර දූෂණය පමණක් නෙමෙයි මනුස්සයාගේ ජීවිතයට මහා තර්ජනයක් එල්ලවන මේ හානියක් සිදු වෙන බවට සාධක සහිතව ඔප්පු වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒකට සාකච්ඡා කරන්න අවශ්‍ය වෙන්නේ නැහැ. රොච්චෝලේ බලාගාරයේ කීප සැරයක්ම අක්‍රිය වුණා. බලාගාරයට වැඩිපුර මෙගාවොට් 600ක් එකතු කිරීමේ ප්‍රයත්නය අතහැරලා දාන්න. අඩු ගානේ ඒකවත් කරන්න. පුළුවන් නම් බලාගාරේ වහලා දාන එක තමයි හොඳ.
Now, a temporary suspension to the water supply will occur in Negombo and several surrounding areas on the 6th of January. The National Water Supply and Drainage Board said that a 24-hour water cut will come into effect from 9 a.m. It added that the water cut is imposed due to the installation of a generator by the Katana project to provide a continuous water supply through the Bambulkulia Water Refinery Centre in Negombo. Reportedly, the water cut will be experienced in the Negombo Municipal Council area, Kochikade, Duwa, Pitipana, Dungalpitiya, Basiavatta, Pamunugam area, Katana area, Katunaki Investment Promotion Zone, Katunaki Air Force Base and the Bandaranaike International Airport premises. Now, the Vice-Chancellor of the Sri Jayawardhanapura University, Senior Professor Sampath Amartunga, has been appointed as the Chairman of the University Grants Commission. The appointment has been made by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa at the Presidential Secretariat this evening. Professor Amartunga is the senior-most Vice-Chancellor in the university system of Sri Lanka and was appointed as the Vice-Chancellor of the Sri Lanka Jayawardhanapura University in 2014. We'll see you again after this short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, in a move aimed at increasing the number of tourists to the country, the government today extended the free visa on arrival scheme until the 30th of April for citizens of 48 countries, including India. Following the April terror attacks where 250 people, or in fact more than 250 people, lost their lives, Sri Lanka suspended its plans to grant visa on arrival to citizens of 39 countries. In July, the government announced that it would add more countries, including India and China, after it relaunched the free visa on arrival scheme, which was implemented from the 1st of August. Minister of Tourism Prasanna Ranatunga said that the facility was extended due to requests from the stakeholders, and a cabinet paper will be submitted for this purpose. In the aftermath of the Easter Sunday bomb attacks, the $20 visa fee for South Asian travellers and $35 fee applicable to visitors from the rest of the world were waived off. Tourism, which contributes 5% of the island's GDP, was dealt a severe blow after the ISIS-linked local extremist group National Tawhid Jamaat carried out suicide bombings at 3 luxury hotels and 3 churches on Easter Sunday in April. Now, calling Sri Lanka an island nation as ancient as it is beautiful and as complex a civilization now as it was back 2,000 years at the beginning of its vibrant history, CNN Travel has included Sri Lanka into its editor's pick of the best 20 destinations to travel to in 2020. Highlighting the island's rich cultural heritage with its ancient ruins, temples, palaces and its natural sites. This comes as a welcome boost to the country's ailing tourism industry, still reeling from the after effects of the deadly Easter Sunday bombings. The travel site recommends visitors to forget the country's reputation as a beach destination and instead head towards its cultural triangle, where the ancient temples and palaces are a sight not to be missed. In addition, the site also recommends visitors to enjoy the country's vibrant wildlife, where its herds of elephants gathering at the Minneria Tank are an especially unique sight. This comes in the backdrop of the island being recently named as Asia's top wildlife destination at the Top Asia Corporate Bull 2019 held in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Now, the crisis-hit finance firm, The Finance Company plc, has called expressions of interest from prospective strategic investors for equity investment in the firm. This was resolved by the TFC's Board of Directors during a meeting held on the 31st of December 2019. In a letter directed to the Colombo Stock Exchange, the TFC mentioned that a minimum equity investment of 25 billion rupees is required for the submission of expressions of interest. The deadline for accepting EOIs will be 14 days from the date of the publication of the paper advertisement, and the investors are required to provide documents for the proof of funds for the investments, their credentials and expectations. Now, Sri Lankan stocks closed at 0.34% lower today. Now, the all-share price index closed at 20.68 points down at 6,108.53. The S&P SL 20 index of most liquid stocks fell 0.03% to 2,935.94. Market turnover was 505 million rupees, where 57 stocks gained and 78 fell. John Keel's Holdings was down 3 rupees 70 cents to 163 rupees 90 cents a share. LOLC Holdings fell 7 rupees 80 cents to 169 rupees 70 cents a share, while Distilleries Company of Sri Lanka was down 40 cents at 18 rupees 10 cents a share. Let's now take a look at how the markets performed today.
In the bond market, yields were broadly flat today with moderate volumes in the market, as we saw some buying interest prevalent on selected mid-tenor maturities, mainly the 2024s and 2027s. In the stock market, of course, we saw the market in a bit of red today, being the first trading day of the new year, with price losses mainly in John Keel's Holdings and LOLC. The ASPI had a volatile downward movement, reaching an intraday low of 6,100 before closing at 6,109. Brown's Investments and LOLs constituted about 42% of the day's turnover, while there was very low foreign participation. However, the net foreign flow was an outflow today for the 6th straight session.
Now, taking a look at the currency markets, the Sri Lankan rupee ended week at 181 rupees and 30 to 45 cents against the US dollar in the spot market today. The rupee closed at 181 rupees and 15 to 25 cents to the greenback yesterday. Now, let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. We'll see you again shortly on the other side of this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, Taiwan's top military official was among 8 people killed today after the helicopter carrying them made a forced landing in the mountainous area near the capital, Taipei. Pictures released by the emergency authorities showed the main portion of the helicopter lay in the northern forest, wreathed in mist, with its blades shattered into pieces as dozens of rescuers combed the wreck for survivors. The military said in a statement that the Chief of General Staff, Air Force General Shen Yiming, died in the incident, while 5 of the 13 people aboard survived. A search and rescue team tried to get to the scene as quickly as possible, but efforts were complicated by the terrain. The helicopter had left Taipei on a mission to visit soldiers in the northeast country of Yilan ahead of Lunar New Year at the end of the month. The incident comes a week before Democratic Taiwan holds presidential and parliamentary election on the 11th of January. Now, the New South Wales state government declared a state of emergency today, which will come into effect tomorrow, giving authorities the power to forcibly evacuate people and take control of services. Tens of this week. High temperatures and strong winds are forecast for the weekend, leading to widespread extreme fire danger in the eastern Australian state. Since September, bushfires have killed 18 people, while at least 17 people remain missing after fires this week alone. The state of emergency will kick in at 9 a.m. tomorrow and will last 7 days. It will allow local authorities to carry out forced evacuations, road closures, and anything else that is required. Now, Hong Kong police arrested about 400 people in the New Year's Day protests after what started as a peaceful pro-democracy march of tens of thousands spiraled into chaotic scenes with police firing tear gas to disperse the crowds. The arrests take the total to about 7,000 since protests in the city escalated in June over a now withdrawn bill that would have allowed extradition to mainland China and will highlight the apparent absence of any progress towards ending the unrest. Tension yesterday arose after some arrests were made in the Wan Chai Bar district, where a branch of global banking group HSBC, which has been the target of protest anger in recent weeks. When scuffles broke out, large numbers of black-clad protesters rushed to the scene, while other protesters formed human chains to pass them various supplies, including bricks, forcing police to bring in their own reinforcements. Police then asked organizers to call off the early march, or more like call off the march early. Scores of police in riot gear, meanwhile, patrolled the streets late into the evening as well. Police told media today that they had arrested 420 people over the New Year holiday, most on New Year's Day, with 287 of them in one sweep for illegal assembly. They said that they only made the arrests yesterday after they notified the march organizers and gave sufficient time for demonstrators to leave. 4 officers were injured during the day, with police putting the number of people who took part in the New Year's Day march at 60,000. Now, Sri Lanka's T20 team left for India to take part in the 3-match T20 series this morning. Before leaving, the Sri Lankan team engaged in religious observances at Sri Lanka Cricket. Sri Lanka is currently ranked 7th in the ICC T20 rankings. The team is captained by Lasith Malinga. The first match between both teams will be played on the 5th of January at the Basara Stadium in Guwahati. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.